Call the Apache Junction City Council work session to order. Roll call.
Mayor Surtee,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Barker. Here. Councilmember Evans. Excused. Councilmember Rizzi.
Present.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
Councilmember Struble.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Interview of applicants for annual appointments and reappointments to Construction Board of Appeals, Health and Human Services Commission, Municipal Property Corporation, Public Arts Commission. And first, we're going to do Construction Board of Appeals. And we just saw an email where something has changed in the last, since we did this last. Can you explain that?
Right, so Chris, on your, at your seat is an email from Chris Ferrier. She was unable to make this evening because we had given her the wrong date to interview. So she had rearranged her schedule for the previous interviews. The other is Char Daniels, fell ill this evening and called us later and said she would not be here tonight. And then you knew about the one individual that had to withdraw because they are a part-time employee and could not serve on the Public Art Commission.
Which
But you
was
were-
that? I'm sorry.
The
Underwood.
Underwood?
Josh Underwood, right. He could not.
The email I'm referencing is that the term changed in the Board of,
Yes. Yeah, so this summer, we repealed Chapter 7 of the city code and adopted a whole new version. And within that was a change of terms for the construction board from a 2-year term to a 3-year term.
okay. So who do we have? First, we have Dave Hanchy for reappointment.
Mayor, prior to we doing that, can we have Jennifer just read what the purpose of the
Construction board of
construction
appeals
board is?
Sure. So, as the new code reads, it's the primary duty of the board is to hear and decide appeals made by individuals regarding construction codes and decisions made by the building and safety manager, to provide for reasonable interpretations of the provisions of the technical codes, to determine the suitability of alternate materials and methods of construction, and to recommend changes of the various building and fire codes to the building and safety manager. The board handles complaints of discrimination by property owners as well. It's a 5-member board appointed by council for 3-year terms.
Now Dave.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm up for reappointment. I've served, I believe, the last 2 years on there. We have yet to have a meeting, so it's a great board.
Okay.
I do have background. I was a residential superintendent for 5+ years, so I do know a lot of the codes and stuff. I am in the position, I believe it's lay person on the board, so I think I'm qualified. I am a Apache Junction resident. I reside at 142 South Royal Palm Road, Apache Junction, Arizona, 85119. And if you have any questions or anything, I am also on the planning and zoning as well. And if you did need to make room for somebody, by all means, I would step aside, but
And Joel, there's never a conflict between that Board of Appeals and P&Z, correct?
Could be.
Mr. Mayor, in law school, we were taught that if you say never, that's not good. So I'm going to say, though, usually, no, there is not one because they're different codes. It's usually the building code is what the Construction Board of Appeals does. The zoning code is for the planning and zoning. But sometimes there's an overlap, but it's rare.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Dave?
So, do you think that, under the capacity, I know that that commission or board hasn't met for a while, but it might, do you think you could make a decision based on the facts and not on emotions or something that could be construed as just hearsay or non-factual?
definitely, I think I do that with planning and zoning and everything as well.
Okay.
Again, you gotta look at the facts of the case and set your personal opinions aside, basically. I think you guys have to do the same thing a lot of times in your positions as well, so.
Thank you.
Okay. No more questions, and thank you.
Thank you.
Charlene Daniels.
She was the one that called in ill.
Okay.
Question? The positions that are open are contractors, right?
There are two vacant positions. They are for a contractor that's a non-general contractor, and then there is a general contractor spot available.
Okay,
And Mr. Henshey fulfills the layperson position.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Health and Human Services, we have Mary Erickson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff members. I am Mary Erickson. I live in Apache Junction at 1226 North Hilton Road, and this is my second term on the Health and Human Services Commission. I am very happy to serve, and the reason that I wanted to be on the board initially was because I saw more opportunities for this commission to be able to influence the community and to really highlight the good things we're already doing, identify the things that we need to do to support our citizens' health and the human services available for our citizens. I would like to entertain any questions you have.
So yours is the term that's expiring,
Yes.
yes.
I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments. I just appreciate what this board has been doing. You guys have done some presentations, and you have brought some different ideas to this
Yep.
board, and it's been greatly appreciated. We've recognized that, and we're really excited to see what else you guys are going to bring forward for the community. But we appreciate what you've brought to the board. It's been really, really interesting and really great to hear.
And how long is the term?
3 years.
And you're doing it different than you were 3 years ago, right? I've heard that you're putting in way more time than previous boards.
From what I understood, the commission only met once a year to review the funding, Health and Human Service funding, and to make advisement to the city about it. My vision was to take a look at, there were 5 tasks that the board was charged with, and the commission never really addressed all of those tasks. We're now looking at an opportunity to do that. We're meeting regularly and identifying ways that we can actually do the tasks that we have been given to do.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Just a comment. I really appreciate the way you're shaping this thing up. Thank you very much. I know it's hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to reiterate everything that's been said here. In the last 3 years, I've seen a substantial increase in the activity that your board has been doing and reaching out into the community and doing things, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Treva Williams?
I believe she's here this evening. The last word we heard was she would be here.
Okay. Lana Thompson. Siri Gerstner. I believe we did interview her last time when she applied for something else. Chris Ferrier.
Is the individual that you have an email
Yes.
on.
And then that is that one.
Yeah, I
So-
think Siri, she said last 2 weeks ago that she wasn't gonna be able to be here, so.
Municipal Property Corporation. One expiring, one vacant, no reappointments, and the only one I have is Treva Williams. So is this one where we can put someone on that doesn't even know about it?
You may ask, absolutely. And we do need members,
Yes.
absolutely.
How many members do we currently, how many seats do we currently have on there?
It is a.
We have 5. We had our meeting today, our annual meeting,
Yeah.
and we had 3 attend, a quorum. And this is one that is a opportunity to definitely have someone that would love to serve and learn a little bit about what the board is. So,
Is this one that Mr. Weller retired from?
yes, sir.
Okay, so
So we have 5 seats, but how many members do we currently have?
3.
3. That's just the quorum, so,
We need 2 more.
yeah.
And they meet annually.
Correct.
Yeah.
So by the bylaws in that one, we meet annually, and that one's there in case we ever need to do tax exempt bonds, and
Yeah.
Could we ask members out of the audience if they might be interested? Because the way that I got appointed was the same situation. They didn't have enough, and I happened to be in the audience, and at the time, Mayor Coleman was the mayor, and he said, "You're appointed." That was kind of how that went, but can we ask the members that
You
are
may.
here?
You may.
Okay. All right, so remember that tomorrow also as we're making appointments, that if someone strikes you as being qualified for this, then maybe we can do some,
Could we ask
we
if
just
anybody's here now?
you mean without, just anyone in the board, in the audience would like to come to the podium?
Why don't we have Jennifer read the,
The
Definition.
summary?
yeah.
The
Yes.
primary duties of this corporation are related to the city bond issues that are that the city's considering. The corporation reviews the city's annual report and certificate of disclosure at the end of each fiscal year. The group is required by Arizona Corporation Commission to file a corporation annual report and certification of disclosure, along with the listing of all municipal corporation officers and directors. This report must include the city's annual assets and liabilities, and usually that is done by quite a bit of the staff here. And then the report is filed with the Corporation Commission by staff.
And it only meets annually, one time?
Correct, correct. And I have seen several minutes that have only 3 people. to
With what the
approve.
city clerk just read, is there anyone in the audience that might want to try for that?
Oh, there you go, both of you.
There's room for both.
My name is Terry Reynolds. I live at 1121 South Lother Drive here in Apache Junction, and I would have an interest in applying for that position on the Municipal Property Corporation Board.
We appreciate your enthusiasm.
So just a minute,
we take all
Terry.
volunteers.
Dave,
yeah.
you too?
Terry, just a second. Just a question, so just so we can get the formal, does he need to submit an application or anything, or is, I'm just for legal purposes and stuff, I'm just,
I don't think so, because if there's not enough seats, I think if he wants to do it, he can do it, and you could talk about it tomorrow night during the appointments.
okay.
Great,
And I'll do more research in the meantime as to what it says on the website or whatever, so.
yeah.
Okay,
And-
thank you.
And so you understand, it's a legislatively mandated board that we have to convene for the city, and then it says that it only meets annually, but it could meet more often if there's an issue that you are,
As required.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Dave, were you interested? Woo-hoo, looky here.
I would be happy to serve if the city needs it. It doesn't seem like it requires a lot of time. The Construction Board of Appeal really doesn't take a lot of time. P&Z does, but, you know, we're talking probably once, twice, 3 times a year at most for this. I'd be honored to serve if you need somebody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you both.
Okay, the Public Arts Commission, and I have a question for Jennifer.
Yes.
So in every other one of these, including the council, the terms are staggered so that the whole board doesn't expire at once.
Correct.
We're gonna have 7, so are some gonna get shorter terms than others?
Yes, there are 3 that will expire in 2022, and there are 4 that expire in 2023.
So when we're making nominations, would anybody be opposed to doing the long-term first? Is that how we should do it, do you think? I'm asking for
I
feedback
think
from
that makes
council.
sense. I don't have a problem doing it that way, just so we don't get confused of
Yes.
who we're
Yeah,
selecting,
really.
and their terms. And
So the first 4 would get 4 years, and the last 3 would get 2 years,
3 year,
It should be 3.
3 years.
3 years,
and
okay.
3, yeah.
So remember that tomorrow then.
And that's, we don't have to, this isn't like every other one we consider openings every year. This isn't something where we have to have them come due every year.
Well,
That's a good question.
the terms are staggered, so it's when they're up.
Okay. And that is, that we did that through the formation of it, or how did that get determined?
Well, this is the beginning time to do it because this is a brand-new board.
Okay.
So as we get into the third and the fourth year, you might be seeing them, and people also resign sometimes, so you might be seeing it every year. It's possible.
They could get impeached also.
So basically, in October, if there's an opening, we could have interviews,
Yes.
Okay.
same as we do. So, Jennifer, one more time, 2022
2020,
expiration
correct,
would be 3 members, and 2023 would be 4 members.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So tomorrow, when we do that, my intention is to do the
Start
The
with the
long-term
longer
first.
terms. Okay.
All right, so these are in no particular order, but it's the way that they're listed here. Katrina Steinberger.
My name. Hi. Thank you very much this evening for your time and your consideration. My name is Katrina
Pull the
Steinberger.
mic.
Is that
There you
better?
go. Yes.
Better, yeah.
I reside at 839 North Vista Road in Apache Junction, and I'm applying for one of the positions. So, you have questions, or would you like me to kind of start?
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I moved here a year and a half ago. I was working, one of the hospitals I was working out of was Mountain Vista Medical Center from 2011, and I started traveling here. I left medicine 2 years ago, and I retired here. So kind of a slower pace, open air.
So what's your interest in art?
I am a hobby artist,
Okay.
and I have a lot of friends who are artists. You'll forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not used to be on this side of it. And I'd like to work within the community to expand it. I've done a lot of traveling. In my travels, I've seen how other communities incorporate art within their communities. You know, we have a dog park that's coming up. You know, there's a dog park in Montana that's a very small community, but their park brings in thousands of visitors because they incorporate functional art in it. They incorporate, which would be nice to do in our community. We have a strong Western heritage here. I'd like to see that preserved. One of the ways we can do that is through art. You know, this is a new committee. I have no idea what your ideas and plans or thoughts are for what it's supposed to look like. You know, I've researched other communities that have art commissions, and they're all over the place. You don't know what you want. Do you want to incorporate functional art, interactive art, standalone art? Do you want to do performances? What do we want this committee to look like? You have a master plan that's due next year. At some point, it would be nice to incorporate a public arts master plan within that. You know?
Good
So
idea.
part of it too is
Good idea.
Yeah.
bringing the economics in, you know? Just like the dog park in Montana, it brings a lot of people into the community. So you have a positive economic benefit. I'd like to be a part of that. I've been a good team member. I play well with others most of the time. And,
I
So do
like
we
your thoughts.
usually.
pardon?
I like your thoughts.
too,
I-
yes.
you-
Yes, excellent.
I also have kind of one other personal reason. I want to prove to my engineer partner who thinks function is more important than form, and I want to prove him wrong.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that art and culture can be an economic driver.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely they
yeah.
can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what town in Montana was that?
It was in Whitefish,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and I was recently up in Colorado, in Silverton, and they have an amazing interactive music park that's only 200 to 400 square foot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's wonderful. And with things like that, I think it'd be fun to incorporate that.
Any more questions for Katrina?
So based on your history, and I understand you have a passion for this, but why didn't you apply for the Health and Human Services also?
I was ready to leave medicine.
Okay.
It was time.
Okay.
So it's kind of a break. I may, down the road, be open to that, but I just kind of wanted the break. And partially as well is, I'm a recent cancer survivor. And so I just wanted to kind of
Sure,
get away from the field.
okay,
And art has always been a passion. My father was, an artist.
yeah.
You had mentioned that you're not sure what it is that we want.
Right,
That's the reason we're trying to get the board, because
exactly.
it isn't what we want, it's, we want the community to come together and figure out what the community needs and wants.
Absolutely. And there's so many other communities that just do tons of things. And yeah, I'm definitely open to hearing what the public wants and working with other groups and putting it together to have something fun and energetic and hopefully bring in tourists and make our other citizens happy.
Eat.
Any questions?
If nothing else, then thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Scott. Liz Nicholas.
I know many of you up there. Thanks for inviting me tonight. I don't know if any of you saw my application and my resume, which I submitted. I have an extensive background in the arts in general and in public art. I'm an artist myself. I live at 183 South Main Drive in Apache Junction. Been here for 7 years. And besides being doing individual art, I've done at least half a dozen public art projects for hospitals, for public buildings, for performing arts centers, so I'm well acquainted with the whole public art process. I was on the board and chair of what we called, back in Millville, New Jersey, the Millville Development Corporation, which oversaw the arts district there. Millville was kind of a down on its luck glass town, and somebody decided, the city engineers decided that it would be good to bring art into the city. And within 5 years of us starting the project, American Artist Magazine named us one of the 10 best arts districts in the United States for working artists. So we did a really good job. Yeah. So I think, I would really enjoy doing this for Apache Junction. And I understand that we want to put together what the mission of the commission would be. That's important. Also to identify funding sources to pay for art, because we don't want our staff to work for nothing. And I'd be glad to serve and help the city out with this. Questions?
Did you make the museum more artsy than it was when you got there?
I think so. Oh, I also forgot to mention that the city had charged a few artists with forming a artist cooperative for the city. Well, I was one of the 3 founding members. We wound up forming a regional arts center instead, which is still going strong today. So it was quite gratifying.
What is your form of art that you?
I do mixed media, Jeff. I still do mosaics,
Yeah.
but I also do mixed media. I paint. I do a little bit of everything, assemblage.
Yeah. Do you have an artist that has inspired you the most?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, my mosaics have been inspired by a famous artist in Philadelphia. His name's Isaiah Zagar, who does some crazy stuff. Interesting story about this man. He was kind of undergoing some mental issues, and he dropped out of the art world and began doing these really bizarre mosaics. And he lived in South Philadelphia, and for a while, the city tried to put out an ordinance that no one could have his murals on the sides of their buildings because he was destroying their property. He was destroying the property values of the area. Just last week, I read that one of the buildings he did a mosaic on, they refused to tear it down because they said it is now a public treasure and they can't tear down his work. So I think that's really gratifying. So he's definitely my what's the word I want to use? Yeah, well, the first time I saw his stuff, I said, I want to do that. I like a lot of abstract work. I like a lot of traditional work, too. I'm fond of a lot of different kinds. I'm interested in Western art here, but I don't think that the city should limit itself to Western art, because you want to surprise people. One of the things when they walked into our art center in Millville for the first time was, we even put it on T-shirts, I can't believe I'm in Millville, because people were shocked at the quality of the work that was there, and it wasn't what they expected to see, which was just shore paintings. I'd like them to say the same thing here. There's nothing wrong with Western art, but I'd like to see a variety of artists brought here and be able to show their work.
Do you have connections with any local artists?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
And I show all over the valley. I'm in a show right now. I just got accepted at a show in Gilbert. I'm going to show up in Carefree right now, and I also show up in Fountain Hills as well.
Okay, if no other questions, thank you. Gretchen Klett.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Klett, and I live on 2360, can't say my address because I'm standing in front of it.
Don't worry about it.
On East Foothill, over here behind the hitching post, and I've been here about 4 years now. And I like AJ. When I first moved here 14 years ago, I moved into Gilbert, and a lot of people said, I came out and I joined the Ghost Riders, and I'd commute out here, and I wanted to live out here. And my friends in town were like, what do you want to live out there in Apache dysfunction for? And I was like, no, but it's really cool. Everything up here was the same. So it took me a while to move out here, and here I am. I've been an artist my entire life. I have talent, and I'm really tapping into it now. I goofed off when I was younger. But I've worked with children with art, so I bring that to the table. I'm really good at doing art programs for children. My background is in the Reggio Emilio art process. It's about doing the process and exploring rather than the product. I'd love to get more of that going here. You can extend that with seniors, getting them involved in doing more crafty things. And I do know what you're trying to do with the Public Arts Commission is, from my understanding, we're going to try and get some more public art pieces, big pieces, and try and find funding for that. If we're going to put public art pieces in the community, it's nice to know psychologically, why do these pieces work? As an artist, I understand that. You might come into the room and go, oh, it's just so nice in here. But I can deconstruct that and go, it's nice because this is how people are interacting, this is the flow, this is what is gonna bring it out in them. Yes, absolutely, I agree with both of these ladies that bringing art to a community builds value because people see it as being beautiful. And now it's got value, like a book. If I give a child an old beat-up book, that child doesn't feel the beauty of it. He may throw it around and not care for it as much. But when you can build that kind of beauty in a community, and especially what they both said, too, I agree with, is interactive community art, things you can touch, walk through, spin, things that are surprising. Western art has a great history here, even in the crash. Western art has a good, solid economic thing. It doesn't go up and down as much as some of the other kinds of arts, but we do want to bring in other kinds of art to help our people experience new things that they might not experience otherwise. I'd love to see other guest artists come and visit and maybe do some kind of a thing. I worked on the Arts Commission in Northern California in a very small rural town. I was on their board for a year, and I volunteered with them for about 3 years. We had a little bed and breakfast up there, and we worked with them. They did a thing where they did a words and music, and it was kind of like an open mic, but for art, and it was held in a different business on the first, whatever, Friday of the month or whatever. So it helped to promote different businesses. They hosted the words and music, and we had visual art on the walls, poetry, singing, reading, lots of things like that. And they were wonderful ways for the community to get together. So once we get some public arts up and we get some money for those, I'd love to see some expansion in those other areas. And I am currently an artist. You can find my stuff on Redbubble under, I'm called One Herd Art. I also donate my art for equine causes. I give my art free to rescues, donkey things. I just donated a bunch of stuff to the Superior Borough Run. One of the prizes was a portrait that I will draw of their borough once they get in touch with me. So that's another thing that's important to me, is using my artwork to give back. And so, by being able to sell some of my art, I can also give. And then what they do is they auction it off. And there was a place in Illinois that I drew their donkey, sent them a print. They got $100 by auctioning off a $6 print that I printed off a Redbubble and sent to her.
Nice.
So if we can do some more of that, I'd love to do some kid art, sell calendars, those kinds of things to also promote people doing things here. So those are little ways that we can make money as well as grants. And I could go on, because I get really excited about
can
this
tell.
stuff, but I'm going to
I am
stop.
so impressed with the vision that I've
too.
been hearing so far.
Me too.
I
It's all
mean,
in
you
the right
guys, you three already have this thing set up and started, as far as I can see. That's
Absolutely.
excellent,
I'm-
excellent.
My master's is in public administration. I do not write grants. I've had to try. I'm willing to try with help from others, but I am good at researching grant sources.
Yes, I
and it
had you
sounds like
down
she
here
is
as a
too.
possible fundraiser. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
Hey,
I would be
I
happy
pegged
to
you.
create fundraisers, and I got donkeys too to bring, more attention to that kind of stuff.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I'm excited that it's finally
I'm a
coming
borough
together.
lover too. I own 2 of them, so I love them.
Come over and come see my borough anytime.
They're
I
sweet.
invite
They're so
people.
sweet.
I have a little I have the only little free library right now, I think, in AJ, where, when you look up, go to littlefreelibrary.org, type in our zip code, it'll come up. It's called the Long Ears for Literacy. We invite kids to come to our house and read to the boroughs, and I'm also want to expand on that as soon as I get in touch with some more people and get a couple more little libraries going. I've been talking to Heidi Gelder. She's just so busy right now.
Neat. That's like the Black Stallion program we used to have
But
here with.
again, that could be incorporated in the arts, because if I were going to do something like that, I would also have kids reading and then making a book from scratch. And I bet these girls would be interested in doing those kind of things too. And there's plenty of people in the community that can volunteer with that kind of stuff.
So lots of ways to send a message to those snooty people
And I've
in
managed
Gilbert.
volunteers. Yeah, no, it doesn't have to, art, that's just it. Come on, Jeff, art shouldn't be snooty. And that's a big thing. Average people can be afraid of art, and it isn't. It's an expression.
It can be intimidating.
Most people are creative. Why do you think everybody's coloring? Those color books. It's an expression. Cricket, crafting. You go online now, and it is a huge market. People want to express themselves. They have the time and the money to do it. Let's give them a place to do it. A place that they can really get involved in it. Again, like it said, I know you want to get a thing in the roundabout. Let's do that first. And then as we grow as a board, we'll figure things out, and we'll start to find resources and start, other things will start to come in as we step towards those things, I think.
Any more questions?
Yeah, what's pyrography?
Wood burning.
Wood burning?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I figured it had
using
something to do
wood-
with fire,
wood
but I
burning
wasn't sure.
tools. It's really taken off. It took off in England more, and it's very artistic now, so I do a little bit of the wood burning. I can sculpt, paint, draw.
That's why we used to do that when I was little.
Yeah,
We had
those
little
old-fashioned,
clips.
yeah, and you'd write your name in.
I
Well,
didn't know
now
what
they
it's called.
quite layer it, and they make, I've done some stuff that looks very fine art, realistic, up of animals and things like that. Look it up online. There's tons of stuff now. It's fun.
Cool.
Fun to do the little burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you can help me with my horses.
Yeah,
When my kids were little, they asked me to draw a horse,
yeah.
and it looks like a chicken.
I can,
So hopefully,
How can a
hopefully you
horse
can help
look
me.
like a
You know, when you're an artist, you just
He doesn't
you
have
draw
to
what you
see.
draw.
and part of art is learning how to see, and then taking it out and then putting it.
The only thing Jeff sees are rhinos.
You need glasses, do you understand?
No, no.
Yeah, no, but seriously, if we did more, we could do things like that where you had the public come, I can't draw, a special class for people who
Well,
can't draw at all.
I could draw a
Like
great
to
chicken.
try,
Yeah.
What I really like to do is you tell me the need. Let's come up with a solution. I'm a brainstormer. I do need help with actualizing things sometimes. So that's why I like being part of a group and a commission. Yeah.
And what's your business?
Right now, I'm not working.
Oh.
I quit my job a year ago to try and do something different. I am gonna I'm looking for a part-time job just to make some money right now. But my boyfriend Bruce is a tip trainer for boroughs through the BLM and the Mustang Heritage. And we were just over at the Superior Borough Run, and you might see some pictures of me. I have just started a persona. She's She's an art. She would be considered part of the art. Her name is Rowdy the Reading Wrangler, and she has a little costume. It's me, and I have a puppet that's a burro, and we read to children. And I'm trying to rent myself out for parties and things like that, so I can do it more in the community for free. And we brought our little burro along with us, and I hope to incorporate crafts with that. So we're just trying to start getting that business off the ground.
Cool.
That was my debut, was this weekend. And I did in 2 days, I've gotten a couple of gigs now out of it. So yeah, it's looking good.
Okay.
It was very well received.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
James Jackson.
I was here a couple of weeks ago, and you appointed me to the library board. Thank you. Our first meeting's in the end of November, so I'm getting ready for that. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the council, I'm here again to this time be part of the Arts Board Commission. I'm on the other side of art. I'm performing art. And so I'm one of those that really can't draw very well. I understand when people say that, and I can't. My children can, and I think it's great. I support them. My vision is actually to pretty much like I said for the library board, I'd like to see the youth more involved in the community in arts. I think we have a lot of very talented youth. As I've visited some of their art exhibitions at schools or concerts that they have provided vocally and instrumental. I'm also very focused in a background of drama. So I've been to several plays here locally that our youth have performed. If we can get them out into the community a little more, I can tell you that there are lots of senior communities, for example, in our little village of Apache Junction that would just die to have some of these youth come in and perform for them. And they'll pay too, you know, which will only help them get uniforms or whatever it is that they need. I think that as we look at an arts commission, we need to look at all areas of art. I think the sculpting art and the paintings that are on the walls and murals or whatever, they're important. But that's not all art is, okay? Art covers a lot of ground. It's actually a very broad topic. It can include poetry, writing and stuff like that. Could be considered art. And there's no reason that the commission shouldn't consider that as well when they are looking at how they can influence art in the community. So I would like to see us focus on as many areas as possible. I'm not sure 7 members is enough, to tell you the truth. I'm not asking necessarily that you expand the board, but I think it would be good that the commission also regularly consider perhaps subgroups or subcommittees or whatever, whatever the real term is, that is focused on sculpture, that is focused on vocal music, that is focused on drama. And then we can bring experts in the community that are maybe some of our senior citizens, maybe some of our parents, maybe some of our youth who can help us grow art in our community. Questions?
You bring up some good points about bringing the children to the seniors. The seniors can't always get to the children. You bring up some very good points about that.
I think they could if they knew more about it, but they don't. So let's bring them to them. Let's bring the youth on to them.
And I don't think we're necessarily against expanding the size of the board.
Uh-huh.
Being new, that we're all just kind of testing the waters.
Sure.
So we're going to probably evolve as we go.
You bet. You bet.
According to the need.
You bet.
So what's your favorite role you've ever played?
I will, we had a local production that was written by one of the school teachers that we worked with in Michigan. And then when I was there, she wrote a play about the person named Job in the Bible. And it was a musical. I was Satan.
Well, that's a fun role.
And I can tell you that, again, it was a musical. We actually traveled all over the country with this particular play. We performed in California, Washington, Texas. We didn't perform in Arizona, but we performed in quite a few places. And I will humbly submit that the favorite character of everyone was Satan, because I had the most fun. But we had a great time, and it was a singing part, but as well as a dramatic part as well. So,
Do you have a video of that?
I actually do. There is one on YouTube. I'm not suggesting that you necessarily have to go there and look.
Yeah.
There is a YouTube video out there with me and trying to convince God to punish Job.
Wow.
And I'm the devil. So, you have to have a favorite role, and that was mine.
Excellent.
This is fun. Oh.
Probably too hot here in Arizona for Satan.
Yeah.
That's why you didn't come.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe.
if no more questions, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jared Ham.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Jared Ham. I reside at 2140 East 36th Avenue in 85119, over off of Cortez Ranch. I've lived in Apache Junction less than a year. I'm fairly new to the community, having been convinced by my friend to move in with them. So I'm actually not so much an artist as I'm more on the science side. However, I'm the guy in the back that brings shows to life. I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Tempe and Gilbert, Arizona. Right now, I'm a freelance contractor that that sets up and runs corporate shows that come to the Valley. So and my work also goes into concerts. So the lighting, the sounds, the videos, the pyro, the carpentry, all of the things that bring a show together, I work on the teams that put those together, and sometimes I even help run some of those meetings and events that go on. To me, art is very subjective, just like it is for everybody, and I have grown up around artists my whole life, from when I was in Phoenix, in Glendale, through my youth, to when I lived in Mesa through my teenage years and in my early adult years, to now being in Apache Junction. Almost everyone I've had in my life is an artist of some sort, whether they're musicians or writers or sculptors or painters or a mix of all of them. And I've even known tattoo artists and every kind of artist almost. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Do you have any examples of some of the things you've promoted?
So I haven't actually promoted anything, but some of the shows that I've set up, last year when Best Buy had one of their award ceremonies for their associates at the Phoenix Convention Center, I set that show up. I've set up some of the events that happen at the Waste Management Open at the Princess Resort. I've set up concerts at the arena for Beyonce to I can't remember his name, but it's the artist that sings Pina Coladas.
Taylor, isn't it?
Rupert. His name's Rupert something.
Yeah, but I've set up, so those are the kinds of events I set up. So I know how to light up, so I can see, if I see an art thing, I can figure out how to light it up. So, it's not a distraction from the road, but, when you walk by it, you see it, you appreciate it. And I don't think art is just something that, is something that you just have at an installation in the side of the road. It could be a piece of playground equipment that the kids climb on. So that's some of the things that I'm feeling.
Okay.
Your
Any
Honor.
questions?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's more of a comment.
Okay.
Behind you is Braden Biggs, and he's kind of running up the Apache Junction with the centennial celebration, and he's looking for people. What's that? Well, he's looking for people with your background
Okay.
for ideas, so it's probably a good idea to get in touch, unless you already have.
No, not yet. But I will definitely speak with him later.
So you can run a soundboard and all that?
I can run a soundboard. I can run video switchers. I'm not very good at running a lighting board, but I know all kinds of people that can run a lighting board left and right and they can make it to where a strobe doesn't give somebody a seizure.
Sure.
I think it's really kind of cool that we have visual people, that we have theater people, that we have painting people, sculpting people, and I'll bet you make jewelry. Yeah, I sort of figured so as I looked at you. I mean, we've got such an eclectic group of art-minded people. So far, I'm thrilled.
This is the most fascinating
thrilled.
interview we have
I
ever
am.
done.
Yes.
This is absolutely
I
the most
agree.
fascinating. No
I
offense to
agree.
anybody else on the other boards.
No.
But this is going to be an
good
amazing
stuff.
board.
This is going to be
Municipal
fantastic.
facilities was pretty exciting.
I thought so.
Okay, thank you, Jared.
You're welcome.
Sari Gerstner's not here, but if you remember last time, she was interested in this.
Very much so, yeah.
Ann Coe.
And now we have the artist,
Yes.
the
Haven't seen
artist,
in a long
the
time.
piece de
I get to
resistance
speak
right here.
tonight with my throat going out, so please excuse me. Mayor, it's nice to see you again. We've spoken about art before, Robin. Gail isn't here, but it's nice to see all of you. I have been a professional artist. That means I have made my living off my work since, in the 70s. I don't want to go back too much, you know. I mean, I studied at the Universidad de Puerto Rico. I studied in Europe, and I received my Master's of Fine Arts at Arizona State. I'm a painter, but I've done everything. I've worked as a producer for the arts programming at our PBS affiliate, Channel 8 here. So I do have that bit of theater in me as well. I've been on so many boards and commissions through the governor, particularly on state trust land. I'm very involved in issues about our living environment and how incredibly important it is to our area. We are known for the superstitions, and it always used to make me angry when I'd drive through Mesa and they'd say, gateway to the superstitions. No, I don't think so. We are the gateway. And so all the things that we do need to involve in the arts, and I like everything that everybody has said, so just include me in all those things. I wanted to share with you a book I illustrated. It was first illustrated for Disney, and then the author and I got the rights to produce it, and we still produce it. I also have a book written by Amy Abrams about me, and I'm going to give it to the mayor, and you all can look through it, and you'll see an example of my art and how wildlife in our living are an important part of my work. I also lived in the tropics and in Europe, so those influences are in there too. I have so much of my life that's been surrounded by art. I really don't know where to go here.
why don't you ask me questions? I wasn't intending on making a speech. I thought I was going to be interviewed. So, Robin, do you have a question?
And I wouldn't dream of having a question for you.
Well, I have to say to you, Robin, I love your pictures on Facebook of all the animals that you post, and I post them to everybody too.
Thank you.
And I love that the city is involved in such a good way with our wild and our tame creatures. I taught at CAC, I taught art.
Yes, you did.
Let's see, what all did I teach? I taught art history, I taught painting and drawing, and painting was usually the most popular. And we were trying to get something going that never got off the ground. I worked with the city of Superior trying to get murals done. We got one done, and one of my students did it. I would love to see Apache Junction is sort of that center of art, and there's a lot of small towns like that. I'd love to see murals on all the walls where people will allow us. The things on the freeway with the Gila, I love those. Those speak so highly of us and our what we are. I was going to wear my Gila Monster pen, but I decided that probably was too much.
I absolutely love the rabbit peering out of here.
Yes.
You have to look twice to see him, and there he is.
And I show a lot. I'm in a show opening on Friday in downtown Phoenix, which is the big art center now. Scottsdale is no longer the place. I've shown in solo shows in New York, Chicago, Denver, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind, Anne, that you have been the name art in this community and this area, and it would be so lovely to have you and all the rest of these marvelous artists.
Their
I'm hearing
ideas.
people that started incredible things back east, and people who started things, you know, to the west of us and to the north of us. Hey, all of you, come on down, start it here.
We got the commission right here.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Actually, Ann, that thing we worked on way back, it still exists. It's the Focal Point Committee, and it led to the Kachina out there.
Yes, and I love
it's-
the Kachina.
And it's also doing the medians too, which is art in itself, the landscaping. So I do have a couple questions. You were on SACA. Is SACA still meeting and doing anything?
I'm not on that I was on the very first Arts Council with Tom Collenborn and Rosemary Shear and Sandy Smith 30 years ago. So we've been trying to, I'm so excited that this is actually a commission. It is not just an art group.
Yes.
And with your teaching background, do you have any ideas to get the schools involved?
Oh, yeah. When I started the Superstition Area Land Trust, and the first thing I did was get the schools involved with doing murals to then march in the parade. And the kids did these big murals, and we had them up on, sticks, and the kids were walking down with that. And one time we did a float of the Superstition Mountains to have the backing of the city would be wonderful, and to have a little scratch for that. We all, did it by ourselves, but there's so many things. I've worked with the mental health facility. They do art programs with Mary Stockrock. She's a PhD professor at ASU in art. She's a good friend of mine. And just one other thing I'd like to say. I know most of the artists here and most of the artists in Arizona in Western arts, in contemporary arts, and I'm in direct contact with them, and I think we could do a fabulous job here, just fabulous.
Awesome.
Okay?
Okay.
I have a-
Any more?
Yes.
If I can make a comment, I was a student of yours many years ago at CAC. After having a brain injury, I was very, very sick.
Oh, my.
And it was recommended to me to take some art classes.
Yes, I recognize
And
your name.
I have never forgotten you, and I've never, I get goosebumps, I've never
Well,
forgotten
now
what
I've
you
got
brought
'em.
back to my life, and how you were able to bring me back from being so sick from an illness.
Well,
And I've followed you ever since, and I love what you've done for
well,
the community.
thank you so much.
Okay.
So grateful.
Thank you so much.
All
This
right,
has
we're going
been,
to finish the books and we'll pass them that way.
yeah, pass them down.
And,
You can put them in the library or keep them in your office. They're yours.
Oh, we get to keep? All right, I will put those in the mayor's office and they'll stay there
Excellent.
for the following mayors then.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Okay.
if you'll excuse me, I do have another meeting that I'm late for.
Okay.
So, but this was
carefully.
well worth it. I'm
All right.
so proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay.
Ryan Buys.
Oh, this is our architect. Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm Ryan Buys, 2876. I forgot my address. I got
Somewhere.
nervous. Yeah.
As long as you can get home.
It's on the
I can get home. It's over that way somewhere. I only moved here 9 months ago now, so I'm still working on remembering it. As you mentioned, I am a practicing architect. I'm registered in Texas, new to the community, like I mentioned previously. As echoed by most people here, I think what drew me here is the open spaces and just the beautiful surroundings. And I think what's driving a lot of us to be here today is our passion for the community and our passion to kind of see it brought to life, into the future even more so through the application of public art. I won't go too much into my preferences for art and the benefits of art, as that's kind of been echoed or resoundingly discussed already. But just wanted to focus on some of my my personal history and my kind of professional credentials, I suppose. Personally, I come from a family of artists. My grandmother was a watercolor artist with works that were on exhibit at the Library of Congress for her watercolor paintings of wildflowers in Texas as an exhibit of women artists in America. She created her submissions off of all the wildflowers that were planted by Lady Bird Johnson and her efforts to beautify the national highway system, which is something that was brought up earlier by the gray art that we have here right outside by Highway 60. My aunt is a poet, smaller scale, just farmers markets, but growing up with them always was inspired to pursue art. My dad is an engineer though, so he wanted to make sure that I had a good fundamental basis for not just the creative side, but practicality as well. So that sent me down the path of architecture, which is a synthesis of art and functionality. Form follows function, right? So, or at least that's what the modernists would tell you. Here in Arizona, I'd have to say one of the best examples of architecture is obviously Frank Lloyd Wright, who synthesized the organic and the mechanization of modernism to a degree that still inspires today. And I think that's kind of the ideal that we're hoping to meet with this commission, is to have that resonating effect in the community that will bring people in and last for generations. So having that history with my family of artists and my father as an engineer sent me to Texas A&M, where I studied architecture for 6 years. I went there for my undergraduate and master's degree in architecture, graduated top of my class in the master's program with a 4.0, with a certificate in facility management, historic preservation, and energy efficiency construction. I also was, part of my education was in urban planning and art history, and I think all of that kind of grounds me in a position to not, or to review and you know, listen to what's being proposed and not just push an opinion. With that context, it's important to really have a survey of the grounding of where things come from.
I think that's going to be important. We've got so many eclectic personalities out there. You guys might not be able to get anything done, so we need to, you know.
I
Well,
think it's going to be amazing.
That does get to my next point. My current occupation as an architect is not so focused on the artistic side. I'm actually designing data centers, but my role is more of a project manager. And the great thing about architecture is when you get to see a project from conception move into reality. And I feel like that's where an architect really, you know, makes his bones, is in that transition from an idea and a concept to an actual built piece in the environment. And that's experienced, that's visualized, that's, you know, the whole shebang. It's what makes it real. I know an important part of the commission is also being able to reach out to the community. I am a member of the AIA, the American Institute of Architects. There's a lot more of them in Phoenix that go to the meetings and events there. I also work for a company in Corgan, which has a downtown Phoenix office, and so I have lots of connections through my professional life with Corgan to downtown Phoenix and state or out to Texas as well. With that, you know, I don't want to go on too long, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's
Well,
any
this
from the
might
council.
sound off base, but I want you guys all to ponder this. Just like Ms. Coe said, she knows a lot of folks in the business. So being an architect, you may have access to some big money donors that we could use. I mean, we can have all these plans, but until we can finance it. So that might be something that you could tie in also by being an organizer and having access to people. And we hate to think about that, but this stuff doesn't pay for itself, so.
Absolutely. I mean, in architecture, it's always about the teamwork between the client, the contractor, and stakeholders and designers. So I think you have to have all those people at the table in order to make something a reality.
Mhm. Any more questions? Can we see any of your work anywhere? Anything that you've designed?
Data centers aren't the most, not the most prevalent buildings. They like to blend in for security reasons. I am hopefully I'm working on a project that will hopefully be developed down on 202 that, if built, will be very visible, and I'll be happy to point that one out to you, pending its construction in 3 to 5 years or so. Which does bring me to another point, I guess, is the longevity and the detailed kind of project management of getting projects like I think the Public Arts Commission is going to be pursuing, which is kind of the eye on that long-term prize.
Absolutely.
And so, as a project manager, that's a lot of what my role is as well, is staying focused on refining all the ideas and the concepts, but also staying focused to drive it towards achieving the goal of having the art or whatever it is, whether it be sculpture or performance or any of the myriad of things that have been mentioned earlier this evening.
Any more questions?
I just appreciate your different point of view that you bring to the
Definitely.
Absolutely.
process.
Thank you.
Yeah, ladies, I think we found your project manager here.
I'm so thrilled with the mix and
Uh-huh.
everything
It's
that we've
perfect.
heard. This is just amazing.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just happy, hands down, just to have been introduced to everyone in this room. It's been impressive, to say the least. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Braden Biggs.
Mayor, members of council, Braden Biggs, 2492 West Cactus Run. First off, like Councilmember Schroeder said about the Apache Junction Centennial Committee, I can we make it a priority and like a requirement for the Arts Commission to be a part of that? That would be really awesome. But please do come. That's the first Thursday of every month at the Public Library at 6 p.m. Like Councilmember Schroeder said, we're trying to do this for 2022. So I just want to put that out to all of you guys, and I'll be happy to talk to you about
Be
that
nice to
later.
get Councilmember Schroeder to one of those meetings, too.
You said it's a Thursday, right?
The first Thursday of every month at 6 p.m.
See, I got softball.
Hit a home run and come on over.
Regardless, I applied for this commission. I've been a part of kind of the start of this whole thing, being able to watch it from conception out of the focal point and tourism group, and then be able to watch it as it's developed through planning and zoning and the city staff coming to council, being able to watch that kind of from the ground up. I think this is amazing. I know it's been said a couple times about the fact that we're even here right now, I think is amazing. I think every single one of those that went before me would be amazing to have on this commission, and the more people that we could get on, the better. One of the things that I personally love when I look at like architecture of buildings and things is the unique diversity of how things can play out. One of my favorite buildings is actually the Kansas City Public Library, because it's a facade on the outside and it's all books. And I think that that's a really cool, unique perspective of art that sometimes we may not think about. As you know, we've talked about, well, it's got to be a statue, or it has to be a mural, or it has to be something. Well, it could also be a facade of a building. Somebody mentioned, you know, reaching out to the community and seeing what the community wants too. I think that that's something we maybe didn't think about when we put the Kachina in. We had a lot of people that came back and were like, well, why a Kachina? Because they didn't understand the purpose behind that. And I think reaching out to the community as well and kind of doing a survey or a poll on what it is that people want to see. We talk a lot about Western art, but we don't necessarily talk about the other forms of art. I am not an artist, unless you count stick figures as art, but I don't. However, I do say on the other side, like Mr. Jackson, I'm on the theater art side, and serve on the board of a youth theater out in Gilbert that serves the entire East Valley. In that, we're actually bringing one of our performances to Zao Theater, our local community theater here in Apache Junction, in November and December, which is Frozen Junior, and that's all 19 and under with our East Valley children. So excited to have that come out here and be able to bring in other opportunities for the city as well. Being a part of the Centennial Committee and the Focal Point in Tourism gives me that background for the opportunities and those connections as well. So open it up to
any
you
questions?
questions.
Mr. Mayor, just on a side note, I will start attending those meetings. Renee and I both.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation and discussion on an agreement with Arizona Department of Homeland Security for fiscal year 2019. Heather Patel.
Yeah, follow that, Heather. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Heather Patel, Development Services. The item before you this evening is a grant award through the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. The city applied back in December for some funding to get handheld radios for the police department. The proposed award is $30,092, and we are required to sign an agreement in order to accept the award. And this item will be, barring any issues, this item will be on the consent agenda tomorrow. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions? It doesn't look like it. Get us some radios.
All right.
All right. Presentation and discussion on an intergovernmental agreement with the Apache Indian Community for Proposition 202 funding for the SWAT team.
Okay, so this is another grant, or proposed grant award for some safety equipment for the SWAT team. The resolution and the agreement is required to go before the tribal council, and then they still have the option to accept the agreement and sign it and present the award, or they could deny the recommendation from their group that made the proposed awards. But this is, the agreement and a resolution is required for us to move on to that next step.
Any questions? Okay, go get us some SWAT equipment. presentation and discussion on the First Amendment for the intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County for household hazardous waste. Heather Hodgman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Heather Hodgman, Public Works Management Analyst. Just to give a little bit more background on the intergovernmental agreement, was the city entered into an IGA with Pinal County in February of 2017 for the participation in the city's HHW events, household hazardous waste events. The county approved $10,000 to reimburse the city for the expenses for the events. This allowed the event to be opened up to Gold Canyon residents and those just east of our border. During fiscal year 18-19, the city approved for 2 household hazardous waste events, and in good faith by Pinal County, they accepted the 2 events and reimbursed the city $20,000. Since then, staff has contacted Pinal County to see if they'd be willing to do 2 more events with us. And on September 4th, Pinal County Board of Supervisors approved the First Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement to allow for 2 household hazardous waste events for maximum reimbursement up to $20,000. So staff is recommending entering into the First Amendment with Pinal County for the 2 events for a maximum of $20,000. This item, oh yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
That's okay.
Sorry,
Either way.
I looked at Mayor.
Is $10,000 realistic for each event? Because if we're looking at $80,000 for a consultant, then the 20 that they would end up paying is about 25%. So do they make up about 25% of the folks that participate in those events?
I can actually give you exact numbers from the last 2 events from fiscal year 18-19. So in our event in November of 2018, we had 156 Pinal County residents that attended. So we keep a tally per council's direction of how many people between city and county would attend. The cost share was $88.29 per car. So you do the math, it's a little over, I think it was 13,000 or something like that. March breakdown, Pinal County had 119 residents attend, and that cost was $89.15 per car. So it is about 23,000 because that was a little less than 10 or right at 10, and so we only invoiced Pinal County for $20,000 because that was part of the agreement.
Okay.
Years past, it was less
So
than
we
10.
feel it's realistic enough to go with the $10,000 per event?
Yes.
Is there a geographical cutoff? For instance, you mentioned Gold Canyon, but what if Kearney and Winkleman and, Santan Valley start coming? Is that possible, and does the county take that into consideration?
I was recently informed that by our contractor for the HHW events, that Santan Valley has some smaller event that they actually put on that's put on by Pinal County. Coolidge has a permanent facility that's down there as well, but I have not heard anything that they want to expand it or willing to expand it.
But is it possible we could be overwhelmed someday, or not? Just probably not?
With our yard, and we have about 500 that attend, and so we're inundated in our smaller facility.
And didn't we do something different to make the lines go faster last time? I think the first time it was really gummed up, and last time you arranged it somehow so it was smoother.
We did, and we worked with our police department, and we came up with a traffic control plan along with the approval from our director to close some roads down. So we did divert all traffic off of Ironwood onto Baseline to come into our facility. And as far as our police department and city staff thought it worked great.
Okay.
Yeah.
The time was a lot better, it was a lot quicker the second time than it was the first time.
We weren't expecting 500 the first time, so I think it was great.
I think the map that they show here, you're taking addresses, right? They have to have a bill or something to show their address?
Correct.
So that would eliminate people from other areas coming because they have their map set out and they have to show the bill. So unless they have a friend here who gives them a bill, I guess.
Yeah.
They use driver's license, is that also, or is it just a bill?
Well, they can, but if we have out-of-state visitors, then they have to use the electric bill or some kind of bill that says their address.
So for Kearney, no problem. Mesa, a problem?
To participate?
Yes.
Yes, Mesa has their own standalone building.
That's what I
that
want to make sure. Yeah.
They do events 4 times a year, but they have their own facility that residents can take it to.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay. This is all on the consent agenda tomorrow?
That's correct.
Yes.
And I'll just add, from a public policy standpoint, there were many years you, as a council, had really wanted to do this. A very popular program. We had started way back in the years, and it was very popular then. We had a few, and then we hit the recession. We did many years where we couldn't afford to do it. And then we ended up getting one, and it was just so overwhelmingly popular. We're to the point where we're hopeful as things go here in the next period of time that we'll be able to keep two. When we just had one. How many times have we done two now? Just
This will be the second year.
barely the second year, and we think that the two will allow for that traffic issue to help keep us safe over there.
Well, and trying to clean up the community, that's a good thing that we're having this kind of a turnout here. So
Yeah,
it's
it's huge.
it's working, it's doing what we're hoping to do.
And we get asked by Gold Canyon all the time about free dump week too, so maybe a future Board of Supervisors can help them with that. So.
Yeah,
Moving on to the next one then. Presentation and discussion on entering into an agreement with Advanced Chemical Transport.
We have 2 current events, as mentioned in the previous item. The first one is going to be set for Saturday, November 16th. The second one is Saturday, February 29th. They're held at our Public Works facility, and the event runs from 8 a.m. until noon. The city, as mentioned, the city does anticipate us doing some road closures, having the traffic control still go off of Ironwood to Baseline. So the staff is recommending entering into an agreement with Advanced Chemical Transport for both of our events. We are utilizing a Maricopa County cooperative contract for a total not to exceed $80,000 for both events. Yes, ma'am.
You knew. You didn't even, I didn't even have to raise my hand. Okay. As I read this agreement, what I see is we are paying a consultant. It
yes.
says consultant's
Yes.
duties. Okay. So is this a single person? Is this a company? What is this consultant?
So it's a company
It is a
that
company.
specializes in hazardous material and how to correctly dispose of it, correctly take it from vehicles, correctly, box it up and ship everything out.
And it also says that the consultant, the company, will do associated services such as supply event personnel, containers, equipment, disposal, setup, packaging, transportation, and breakdown of the event. So does that mean that this company is going to use their personnel rather than our using our personnel as we have in the past?
It will be a combination. So we've always had to have staff there.
Right.
The little bit of change this year is that they're going to use another contractor called Green Sheen. Green Sheen's going to handle all of our paint, latex issues because we have so much that comes in during this event. And we've always had problems staffing that area so they're bringing in their staff, they're handling it. So
Okay.
the anticipation is no city staff will be in the hazardous area, but city staff will be out throughout the yard, our
Okay.
yard.
Okay, that answers my question as I read through this. Thank you.
Any more questions? The public can't comment on these, correct? Yeah,
Correct.
So we're-
yes, so, sorry. Joel, would you address that?
Work sessions, no comment. I mean, I'm not I am commenting, but no comment from public. So it'd be tomorrow night. If it's on consent, someone can pull it off, any council member can. We can't, we're in violation of the open meeting law right now. We cannot be having contact from the public. Sorry.
Right now, you mean?
Correct. Maybe after the meeting, somebody could explain it to Mr. Reynolds.
Okay, so like you said, it can be explained after the meeting.
So this is on for consent tomorrow as well.
Okay, thank you. presentation and discussion on the contract for solid waste. And Brian, I think you're going to turn this over to Matt.
Yes, let's go ahead and turn this over to Matt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Matt Busby, Assistant City Manager. As you may have heard recently, we've been talking about solid waste services. I'm not sure if you've gotten any comments from the community or questions. We have answered a lot of questions regarding this item, both through the phone as well as the City Council. And I want to go through the timeline of what led up to the current solid waste consideration for you for this contract, potential contract, I should still call it, with Republic Services. So first, to go through the timeline, in fall of 2016, city staff partnered with ASU, their School of Sustainability, with what they referred to as the Project Cities program. We had various projects with them. One included taking a look at our solid waste services in the city and compare that to other municipalities in Arizona. Later that year, in that fiscal year, June 8th, 2017, you, the City Council, heard a presentation on that report and its findings. Then in fall 2017, we asked them to do some further research for us that included an in-depth review and some recommendations. April 3rd, 2018, City Council again heard the presentation on that report, which identified some areas of possible improvement. One of those areas was this consideration of going to a single hauler for all residential services, solid waste collection services under one contract for the city. At the May 1st, 2018 City Council meeting, Mayor and City Council directed staff to research that idea further and bring forward a draft RFP. So over the course of about a year, a little less than a year, staff researched that further as requested and brought forward a draft RFP to the City Council. We got feedback from you and incorporated that in the RFP and opened the RFP on June 10th, 2019. It ran for about 5 weeks, and we got 3 responses from the 3 largest waste hauling companies in the nation: Waste Management, Republic Services, and Waste Connections, and that's an order of size of companies. This year, August 6, 2019, City Council heard a presentation on the RFP process as well as the evaluations that staff did, along with the staff recommendation to award a contract to Republic Services. City Council did direct staff unanimously to move forward with those negotiations based on one of the alternate bid proposals. So some of the questions that you all have fielded, as well as city staff, through this process over the last couple months, is one of the big ones is why a single hauler? And you'll see here some of the reasons. These are among the reasons of why a single hauler. Probably the biggest reason is to provide a lower rate for customers. By using economies of scale, more customers, a business can offer a lower price because they're guaranteed at least some level of customers. And with that, it gives some surety to those customers that prices won't be different or changed however the contractor wanted to. So the RFP provides this ability to have some price control as well. The additional service was also a big reason why we wanted to go to single hauler, because not only are we doing just regular curbside pickup, but we're adding a service that previously residents would have to pay extra for, and that is this curbside bulk waste pickup. And then finally, among the reasons is this environmental impact. Reducing the number of trucks, going from 3 companies on the roads to 1 company, reduces emissions and reduces wear and tear on the residential streets, as well as noise in the neighborhoods. This applies to all residential units in the city that fall under the following 4 categories: single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Those residences that might be big apartment complexes, they do it through a commercial contract. Commercial solid waste services are all fall under state law, so we don't have a say in how commercial services are done. So the negotiated contract includes some of the following things. I'll go over a few of them, and then we'll turn it to Joel for some of the more legal side of the contract, whatever he feels would be important for the city council to consider. First of all is this price, twice a week trash collection plus once a month bulk trash pickup, $10.71 per month or $32 per quarter. Very far less than most, if not all, customers are getting right now. Twice weekly trash, another option would be twice weekly trash collection plus once a week recycling plus that monthly bulk trash pickup. So adding that recycling part to it would add another $8 to the price per month. These prices include all fees. There's no way for the contractor, if the contract is awarded to them, to add fees or surcharges, anything like that. Billing will be quarterly, and if there is a resident wants to pay it on an annual basis, they'll get a 2% discount. And finally, there's this seasonal service option built into the contract for suspension of the account for up to 6 months if there are winter residents that don't want to pay that annual. These services will not be affected. Our quarterly cleanups, our local rates at the landfill, which I think per load is $10 after tax right now. A very good rate. I think the private rate is somewhere up in the $50 or $60 range. I'm not exactly sure on that rate, but it's much more than our residence rate. And then 2 household hazardous waste events each year will continue, just as you heard from Heather Hodgman. Terms, it'll be initial term of 8 years plus the option of 2 one-year renewals. Any rate increases are tied to this consumer price index for water, sewer, and trash collection. There is an administrative fee included in that $10.71 a month that will go to the city. It'll help us oversee the contract and pay for those household hazardous waste events, which are currently paid out of our general fund. And any HOA contracts, which our understanding is there's about 3 or 4 out there, they'll be honored through the term of their contract before they have to roll over to be served by Republic Services. What to expect next? The November 5th council meeting, there'll be a public hearing and consideration of the contract by you, the city council. November 18th, we'll also discuss the solid waste ordinance that needs to be updated. And that discussion could also take place on November 4th work session. And we're putting final touches on the draft ordinance for your consideration, and we actually anticipate it being able to be heard on November 4th at a work session. That would affect the next meeting on there too, December 3rd, consideration of the new ordinance. That could also be done on November 19th instead of December 3rd. And then December through March, if the contract's awarded, there'll be a big public information campaign to make sure residents understand it even better, and working with Republic, if awarded, all the transition information that people need to know will be public information out there. And before we turn to questions, if Joel has anything to add about the actual contract language,
Your Honor.
I turn the time over to him.
As Joel goes through his part of the contract, are we gonna hold our questions, or should we ask them as we go, or what works for? Because I've got a bunch of questions.
I think that's up to you as a city council.
I mean,
You want to let
just
Joel
let him finish?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. I think Matt covered most of them, but I will go through them. The ones that were, we had some negotiation issues with. First of all, I want to say that this has been signed. It's good to get a signature from an applicant developer, because basically that means this is what they're willing to do. And if you change anything, we would have to go back to them and actually get another signature and have to show them the draft. So just to let you know, that's what
That was going to be one of my questions, is how much tweaking on this can we do?
Well, you can do whatever you want. However, I'm telling you now, this has been signed by corporate. To get another signature, there's going to be some back and forth.
The corporate of Republic Services.
Correct. So I don't know how long that would take. Hopefully,
Depends what
Mr.
it is.
Powell would, it depends what it is, but you would be meeting with them to talk about the changes. And it might delay the ultimate approval. That's the only thing I will say.
So since there are going to be so many questions, you will have one now?
Yeah, I have. I received a telephone call from, oh shoot, who is it, from Republic today.
Stephen?
Probably Stephen Herring.
And one of the questions that came up was, of course, as you all know, the horse community, and some people asked me questions. And they said that they would be willing to accept horse manure in the 96 gallon container, and that the charge on that would be roughly $16 a month instead, and that would offset their costs in this. And so I guess that's a modification that they've already agreed to. How does that work into what they've already agreed to?
I don't know if you want to take a stab at this, but it's not, so as I understand, this is a service that is covering the vast majority of what is presented in the public, and they will work directly with folks, as I understand it, for the manure part.
Yeah, so my answer would be that what you see in the contract is based on what we asked for in the RFP process. And that as a private company, I assume they could choose beyond that how they dealt with things like horse manure that weren't addressed in the RFP, and it sounds like that's what they're telling the vice mayor.
Okay, so that's not going to present a problem in the contract then. And the other thing I would encourage in the aspect on it, if we could do and I don't know, I understand there's people, I guess, that are afraid to come down here and sit in the audience and listen to us. And of course, in a work session, they can't address questions or do things. Could we, between now and our next council meeting, have a meeting in, I'm going to say the Multi-Generation Center, for an informal, where we give the community the opportunity to come forward and hear the facts, to understand what we're talking about, what we're doing, and the reasons. Because right now, there is a lot of BS that is being published. For example, one of them I addressed now 4 times, is that we're forcing everybody to go and pay a monthly fee every month. They're going to be billed. Republic doesn't want to do a monthly fee because it costs a lot to mail those son of a guns out. It's just, I want to say, that way we have an opportunity to sit with the public where they don't feel, I guess they're scared to come into this building. They're afraid of it or even watch it. I don't understand it, but that's kind of what's going on right
It
now.
can be intimidating to try to address the council at the microphone. I think we've all been there. Maybe that's what it is. And maybe a little less intimidating when you're not at the podium, when you're talking to somebody a little bit more, less official.
One of the things I've noticed now that we have a contract and now we have a signed contract, we can know what they're committing to do, and an informational, educational, letting them know what is real and what is not, can be done. I think that that's something we could do.
If we chose to do something like that, I think that we need representation from Republic to
And I asked him,
be
and I
able to
asked him, and he
answer
said that
those
he'd be willing to
specific
come.
questions.
We're
And
both
he'd be
talking
willing
at
to
the
come.
same time. One at a time, please.
And I don't disagree. It'd be great to have Republic there to be able to answer the questions directly.
So would this just be a staff meeting presentation and Republic staff presentation, or is it just gonna be another council meeting?
No, won't be council.
No.
So council would not be there, that's what I'm asking.
It can be there.
We can be there.
Well,
But we won't be,
But we won't be leading the meeting. We can be there in attendance.
It'd have to be,
Not the ones to answer the questions.
Krista, I know you had a bunch of questions, but I have some, like about how much this can be tweaked. Aside from forcing our citizens to buy a product, some of this seems to be overkill with the twice a week. Right now, I have once a week with RAD. A lot of people don't need twice a week. What about the option of once a week for even less money, even less than $10?
So I think that one, I'll turn to Matt, but I think there's state law on that one.
Yeah, so state law requires twice a week pickup, but there is one caveat, that if they also provide a one-day recycle, that fulfills that requirement. So that recycle and trash could be combined to one day. But there has to be a trash and recycle. There can't just be a trash
But we've asked about that.
on one day.
I know, remember Robin had said it. What about for those that don't need 2 trash days? Why can't we have an option, 1 trash, 1 recycle for those folks?
Well, nothing obligates them to roll it out on the second day.
But
But
that's
to-
beside the point. That's
Right,
not
so
even
our-
the point.
Yeah, our RFP didn't address or ask
No,
for a
it
price on,
Can that not,
well, I'm sorry, it did for the standard service.
can we not ask them to add that, option? Is it too late for that? Because I've got a lot of red marks through this thing to address, and that's just one of them.
Your Honor, if I may. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Anna McCray, Assistant to the City Manager. In our RFP that went out, in which responses were received, the standard service at that time was once a week trash collection and once a week recycling collection. However, after review and keeping in mind that the lowest rates was one of the largest reasons why council decided to go through with the policy on this, was to keep those rates down. The change in the recycling market is what is driving those costs up. So the 1071 was the attractive rate, and that was the twice-a-week trash collection. However, just such as the manure question Vice Mayor asked the Republic Services representative today, this option you're speaking of, the one-time-a-week trash collection and one-time-a-week recycling collection, could still be something that is offered through Republic Services on an individual basis if the customer wishes. And that's something we can discuss with Republic Services.
Let me know when it does.
Go ahead, go.
Well, this is something that we could ask at the public meeting too, what their price would be. I think that one of the things that's interesting in the marketplace for recycling, if you do go out and ask them what it would be, we are basically, so what I wanted to bring up too about the presentation that I've found over the 20 years working here is there's a portion of this discussion in the timeline that we've done 3 times. The first time was with Councilmember DeBall in 2001, where he really wanted to consider the single hauler. And we had the discussion and we went through it, and they got to the point, they did a vote on the council direction to staff night, and it was a 4-3 vote, not in favor to move forward. So we didn't do it, and we continued on with the subscription-based approach. And over the years, one of the issues we've had at code compliance is our inability to have enforcement of having folks do trash service, to be very honest and frank. We have a lot of folks who just choose not to have trash service. And so we get folks who save up for the quarterly cleanups, and over the years we've had, how do you resolve that? Well, one of the ways is to go to a single stream recycling and a single stream hauler. And so it came back up around 8 or 9 years ago, and we started going towards that discussion again with the goal of requesting an RFP. And as we started to go through it, the 3 waste haulers came and asked, please, if you'll do once a week trash and once a week recycling, we want to stay in this world of subscription-based or the non-contract. And so we've been in that since this time. We can certainly have them let us know that what a once a week trash, once a week recycling would be for that service, and see what that rate is, because we split it out. When we did the RFP, we were really trying to see if the desire to move forward with one hauler would be predicated on price and the ability to do price or not. And so that's kind of how we bid it. We bid it out with the ability to do a user fee for approach towards recycling and a trash-only approach.
Krista, just keep firing them off. You've got
First
the floor.
concern is the 8 years. It just seems like a long, I understand why we went with 8 years. For a company that's got to make the investment, they're going to have to buy additional vehicles, hire additional people. But 8 years, I've had so many phone calls on why so many years initially to start the contract?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, that's a tough one.
Wouldn't that keep the rates down and locks them in longer?
Yes, it does, but that's been a concern. Unacceptable, I'm just going down Joel's agreement here. Unacceptable waste will occur, will, the person who puts unacceptable waste in the receptacle will occur any of the cost. How are we gonna determine that somebody's putting something unacceptable? Are we gonna start going through people's trash? And now with Councilmember Wilson bringing up the manure, are we gonna be looking in people's trash cans to see if there's manure? How's that gonna be determined?
May I address that point? Actually, all your trash companies do that right now. When they dump the trash, they notice things like paint cans or things that are unacceptable. And even in your recycling, you will get a little note on your little mailbox. It says, excuse me, but you can't put those little yogurt cups in recycling because they're a number 6. I know because I got one of those notes. So, yes, they do. They see it now. It'll be no different.
So when we say that the depositor is going to incur any of the costs, what does that mean? Is that gonna be $20, $50, $10, 3 cents? I mean, how are we gonna know? What kind of control are we gonna have over that to know how they're gonna ding the person that throws something they shouldn't in the can?
Matt, Anna, do you want to address both of those, the 8-year mark and the how to enforce it?
Oh, the 8-year contract term, yeah, so as Mayor Surtee alluded to, that helps give the companies, everyone who bid on that, because that was in RFP, the upfront, it was 8 years back in June. And it gives them some surety to drive down costs, because we're also requiring newer trucks, and that's building into their budget. All those things work into this 8-year and this concept of getting the lowest price. And I'm sorry, what was the other?
The other one.
And I'll just add one comment to that as well. We did take a number of other cities and towns RFPs that have been through this process, and that seemed to be the norm, was 8 to 10 years. So we took that into consideration in developing that provision in the RFP as well.
Yeah, you want to talk to that?
Do I want to?
No. Joel is just the unacceptable waste.
You're worried about the costs and how's that audited? I would think the company would allow some kind of audit on how they determine what the cost is. We had a difficult time with some definitions, and we wanted, they came up with some definitions that were not in the RFP. We could not agree on them at the time, and we're going to have in the solid waste ordinance definitions. So that would be coming, you'll see that documents in about a month, is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, we're hoping November 4th work session.
So I think the answer is the city could ask for an audit of how they come up with the cost.
The cost of how of dinging someone, they find something that's not supposed to be in there, and it says that they're gonna they could incur a cost. My question is, it just seems kind of ambiguous, and are they, if I throw a shoe in there that's not supposed to be in there, am I going to get dinged $10? Am I going to get dinged 50 cents?
And to clarify what
some kind of
unacceptable
idea.
waste might be, or unacceptable waste, it would be hazardous waste material that I would think most reasonable people would know, car batteries,
So maybe
kerosene,
we need to clarify that from- because
tires
the word,
in their trash
was the
can.
word used there?
Did you want to clarify something on it?
Unacceptable, I mean, maybe we should call it hazardous, then people may know the difference.
Councilmember Rizzi, in the proposed solid waste ordinance that you will be seeing at the November 4th or 18th work session, has all of those definitions. It has provisions in that ordinance, how to properly bag your garbage, all that. It defines unacceptable waste, hazardous waste. So that it will be a lot clearer when you see the proposed ordinance, which is how the enforcement will help, or it will help shape the enforcement, if you will.
I have enforcement questions too. The agreement will be renewed every 2 years, so that means we're checking in every 2 years in this 8-year process?
What are you referring to every 2 years?
Contract term, the agreement will be renewed automatically and continuously for I'm sorry, let me find the page here. We're on Joel's agreement. Page 3. Towards the bottom, contract term. agreement will be renewed automatically and continuously for 2 consecutive periods. Are we checking in every 2 years or every year?
Councilmember Rizzi, that's at the end of the initial 8-year contract term. The 2 additional 1-year renewals will continue automatically at that time, unless there's written notice.
So at the end of the 8 years, it won't come to council to extend it for another 2 years? Because I thought the point was to check in, see how things are going.
Well, there are termination of contracts, right, Joel?
Yes.
Items 23 and 24. At any given,
The renewals will be approved in writing by both parties, so I assume that would have to come back to council. Joel?
Yes, it'd be an amendment.
but this is after the 8 years. I'm saying at year
Correct.
1, if things aren't going great, we have the
yeah.
ability.
We have the ability.
The termination by
There's
city,
the
right? We have an opt-out and we can go back to our subscription
It's page 9.
based program at any time, right?
It's in the contract, it's a termination clause. Page 9,
20.
section 24.
I understand that part,
Page 9.
but somehow I thought that we were going to check in. We weren't just gonna automatically renew it. There was gonna be a check-in process. So the only time we're gonna check in is if there's a problem, if we're hearing a problem?
Every year, they're gonna bring their proposed rate increase to us, correct?
That's another question I have.
Correct. They must supply in writing a request to increase the rates. They can only do that on one time a year, and it's per that CPI, water, sewer, and trash.
So they are gonna be checking in. Here's
So-
my next question on that. Number 10, shall increase. Shouldn't that be could or may increase? Because now we're saying every year they're going to be increasing the price. And it says, number 10, under adjustment, shall increase the rates.
And it's,
Each
based on
anniversary.
what that CPI is.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe we don't want them to increase, though.
Correct.
Should it say may increase? Is that gonna be at the discretion of the council or at the discretion of the contractor? I thought the council was going to be the ones that controlled the price so that we don't have a monopoly.
So we agreed to this in the negotiation, well, because it's reasonable to assume that costs of doing business go up every year. And so that's why we tie it to a for sure CPI index. That's, you go to the census webpage
Right,
and
so
you find that.
it actually could work in
And
our
so
favor if
we
gas
felt that
prices
was
go
reasonable.
significantly higher. There's major changes right now.
Yeah.
At any given point in the marketplace, and we've seen this over time in the subscription-based formula, changes happen, and then you get a $5, $10 increase.
It could go down. And this says it shall increase. It could go down. There is that possibility.
So we could
I don't know if I-
ask them, this is a negotiation, and we can ask them to say could or should.
There's this, and
My
To the
suggestion
point
is
of-
the word may, so that it doesn't, we're not obligated to say it's going to increase.
There-
It could decrease, like Councilmember Parker said.
there's the section, and I can't find it right off the bat, called market adjustments, where if there's
I read it.
significant changes in the market for recycling or for trash or CPI, it allows us to come back and discuss it with the contractor or the partner to see what needs to be done contractually, whether that's increasing prices or reducing prices.
Okay, that was just a concern of mine. We're under adjustments, number 10, shall increase each anniversary. That, to me, we're already signing ourselves up for rate increases. And,
If I may,
Uh-huh.
Councilmember, we did actually initially strike that provision, but they came back and they said they needed it. So that was a negotiated thing, like Mr. Busby said.
the reason I'm asking these questions is the number of calls and emails I've gotten from the citizens. And honestly, timing is everything, as our city manager explained. We've done this 2 or 3 times where it's come to the city. And I have some reservations about the timing of this right now, based on the number of people that I've talked with, taking, emails and phone calls, and so,
this is
and
totally
that's
up
the
to you
reason
all.
I'm
If
asking
y'all
these
wanna
questions,
back
because
it.
these are a lot of the questions that I've had.
Understood.
And
Yeah, we
so,
We certainly go back, we certainly can go back, and they'll be watching, and this is a negotiation. I don't think that the signature on there has to be
Yeah.
something that keeps us from going back and forth. It may change the timing of when we can start the program, because they're gonna have to be able to have time to purchase the new vehicles and maybe it's not a March 1 start if it takes us a little bit longer to negotiation, and we can look at some of the items you're talking about.
And if somebody could possibly just take the notes of some of these questions, I understand some of them are a little bit.
Absolutely, and we
Yep.
have it recorded that we
Thank
can
you.
make sure we get the exact
Number
concerns.
16, it talks about,
The enforced delay.
yes, with the delay, but it doesn't talk about if there's a natural disaster, or act of God or whatever with a delay. But it doesn't talk about when their part is to come back and pick it up if they have a miss. So they miss they miss pickup because of, we had a tornado or something that came up. But it doesn't talk about how long of a period they have to come back and go back and pick it up again. That was
I'm always confused on holidays now. Do I put it out on Christmas if it falls on a Thursday, or are they gonna come the next day or the next day?
So I don't know if we can just get some clarification on that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to put people on the spot. I'm not trying to do that at all.
And Mayor, just to answer your comment on the holiday service, that is also part of the proposed solid waste ordinance you will see. We have a provision in there on that they must communicate any changes or deviation in schedule. So that may also address Councilmember Rizzi's concern on missed pickups as well.
So is it possible that we've got this kind of backwards, that perhaps we should have seen the ordinance before we saw this? Because you're telling us that the definitions, et cetera, are all in this proposed ordinance, and those are the questions we have on this. So maybe we should have gotten them both at the same time, or something may have taken some of Councilmember Reese's questions and thrown them out at that point.
Probably. And again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I don't mean to do that. You're right. That would probably have helped. And then if somebody could just take note of a couple more things. On the very last 2 pages where it talks about cost proposal, there's a fee here, a delivery fee if people are using larger dumpsters. But it also talks about a lift fee, and I don't understand what that means. An $8 or a $16 lift fee. Does that mean if I cancel my dumpster that they'll come back and charge me to come back and get it, or?
So I'll give you an example that might answer your question. You're doing a remodel on a house. You have a large dumpster you want out there for the duration of the project. Day one, you fill it up. Well, I'm sorry, they deliver it day one, right? $50 charge to get it there by the company. And then say you anticipate it takes a month for this remodel. And you anticipate in your construction estimates that you're gonna need them to pick it up 5 times. So each time they pick it up and take the trash out of it would be the lift charge of $8.
Okay.
Then when you're done with the project and they take their trash back to their trash bin or dumpster back, that's a $50 removal fee.
And then
Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. I just have one last one. If their prices, say between now and the time we continue to massage this and work it out, and finally, if the council goes in the direction of having this one service and we sign on a contract, from this time until whenever that does or doesn't take place, that we officially sign on with a service, what happens with the costs? Can they just continue to increase costs between now and then? How are we going to control once we were to get into a contract? Because I've had some people start calling and saying, they've already raised my prices $10, $20, $30, I don't know.
Right.
And so what
This
happens?
is the benefit of entering into a contract and trying to have some semblance of control over what the private sector charges or for a large service, but not really, there's nothing we could do to prevent that.
Well, if I may.
Because it's private. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, the
Yeah.
question is, can they change Exhibit A
Oh,
between
I'm
now and the
sorry.
time that
Right.
that it's signed officially by the council, correct?
So they can raise their prices, but once, if we decide to go with the service, they get into the contract, they're gonna have to bring it down to this price.
This will have to be the contract
Okay.
price. Now,
Okay.
if they're raising rates right now in the private sector, there's nothing we can do about that. I think that's what you were addressing.
Right, and some of
But
that's happened.
once we do the contract, no, these are the prices, and this is pursuant to the RFP. So if they change that, now they're not responsive to the RFP, and then I don't think the council could enter into the agreement.
I have questions about enforcement, but it sounds like we're gonna hear about that. About how we're gonna do some enforcement if people don't have, or don't pay, or, I'm concerned about enforcement. That's it.
Your Honor? Yes, Councilman Schroeder. I'd like to,
Good job.
going back to what Councilman Murray was talking about, where it shall raise the rates. And then, we're kind of assuming, hey, the cost of living goes up every year, we gotta expect these things to go up every year. I just looked into my trash bill, and for over a decade, it's gone up one time because of raising gas prices, and then it was brought back down to the original price. So I don't buy this every year growth, we need to raise our rates. I just don't buy it, because the last decade, I've never had that problem with my trash service. But this is saying that it's going to go up because of that problem. And until this, in my opinion, is, cleaned up a little bit, and I cannot get behind this contract.
And when you say cleaned up a bit, specifically this adjustment for the
I like to
CPI and
say,
other
hey, you're
concerns
locked in.
expressed?
You want to be the single provider service for this city, you're locked into this price, and that's just what it's going to be. You know what you have to do every year. I mean, you've been in this business for decades. You're the third largest in the country who is actually owns Republic Services. If they're coming at us with a price, they should know that price should be good for them.
We certainly can go back and ask them if they're interested in maybe some cap or some not to exceed amount, or
absolutely.
the language like Councilmember Rizzi talked about, which is a may.
And
Yeah.
I don't
You know.
think that any company can tell you that they can name a price that will work for them for a period of 8 years.
For certain.
For a year, yes, but not 8 years. I think that's ludicrous. I couldn't do that with my business. I
Well,
couldn't tell you
contractually,
8 years
okay,
from now, this
I
will
can get on
be
board with
X.
that contractually, but for the past 10 years, I've been able to pay the same rate.
Well, you're lucky, I haven't. Mine's gone up every other quarter.
Not mine.
I think they'd have a general idea, but you can't, there's some
Right.
elements that you can't predict to be certain.
Absolutely.
There's
We s-
going to be variables, and
Well-
so I get that there would be a possible increase. I have a problem with saying shall increase every year. I have a
And-
problem with that.
And certainly, this is the first step of, this is a work session. This is the first time we've had
Yep.
the contract in front of you, and that's exactly the feedback we need, and we could definitely go back to them with this.
And I think that was some of the concern when the signature came up of, being that this is our first crack at the contract. We want to look it over, make our notes and talk about it, and know that it's going to go back to the other party and be negotiated. I don't think, it was kind of concerning when we heard that there was a signature and it, might be hard to negotiate. If this is our first look at it, well, we're going to have some changes.
And if I can just add, I think the signatures just say they've agreed to this. I don't think we ever intended you to feel that that's all that they would agree to. And in fact, they've been very willing and has said that, I think even in talking to Vice Mayor Wilson, it seemed that they're willing to still talk. But this was just, this is
I even think there's a
negotiated.
provision about recycling in here, if I remember right, that if recycling markets are found for plastic, that it can relook at that over time as well. I can't remember which section that is.
So Joel was
It's the
saying
market
that
adjustment.
Joel was saying that this adjustments was something we came back to him at, saying, hey, we want to, tweak this a little bit, but then they came back and said, no, we want this in there. That's
all.
But
Yeah,
that's giving me,
negotiations.
that's telling me bait and switch. It's like, I'm going to give you a price, but I got to have this in the contract. So when I do raise your rates, I can throw out cost of living, I can throw out, unacceptable trash in your trash can, or how to tie your trash bag. Did I understand that correctly? That's actually in a,
How to
It's in there.
properly
It was.
bag, and it's
circled in
very
there.
common
that's
among
that.
cities and towns in their solid waste ordinances.
Yeah.
but the fact that they wouldn't consider removing that, it raises flags to me.
Is it possible that that particular paragraph was what they wanted in there and not necessarily the word shall? Is it
Maybe.
possible that they would be interested in changing that to may?
We certainly,
we-
they're not
we'll
here,
ask.
yeah, we'll definitely
Yeah.
ask.
We did talk about that, but, that's what negotiation's all about.
And
I
I,
think it got kind of scary at the very get-go here tonight, though, when you said, this is signed, and if you change anything, it's probably going to take longer. I think you scared us with that, Joel.
Little bit.
And I think that some of us felt like, oops, does that mean we can't change anything, or we won't get this at all? So,
My
that was
question
kind of-
was concerning the manure, because it's not part of it.
yeah.
In the aspect that, though I did get the telephone call from him saying that this is, acceptable, but it's not in the contract.
And that, those are the type of questions and answers we'll need to have with our community, and that you can find out how it could work.
Yeah.
And
Krista, did you get all your questions
I
in?
did, and thank you, staff. Again, it wasn't to beat anybody up here, it was just to take note and
Okay.
to try to get back with us with those.
So-
I appreciate your.
Well, if I may, one more
Your
thing.
question.
If I could just clarify that, what your point was. Some years back, we had a development agreement. I know it's a little different, and it had been negotiated for a downtown development. And we didn't have a signature of the developer. And so that was a problem, because they basically, at that point, didn't want to do it. In fact, one council member walked out of here very angry about it. So if we had a signature,
I got you.
then it would have been a perfect agreement. So, and I'm not saying this is a perfect agreement. I was asked to look into some of the things, the city manager did, so we went back and forth. So we thought it was an acceptable, the way it's drafted. If it's not, you can make changes. But my point was, if you want to make changes, it's going to take a little longer. That was the only, it was not try to scare you. Attorneys don't like to scare, except in certain situations. Sometimes it doesn't work, but.
So
Thank
the
you,
signature just means we're willing to work with you and
Absolutely.
work this
Yeah.
out. That's what
This
that
is what
says.
we
Let's-
agreed to
let's
right
work it
now.
Yes.
through.
this is what we
Yeah.
agreed to.
Sorry.
That it's a commitment on their part that this
Yeah.
is what we're can do, what they can do, and it means we'll be watching, we'll be working
We make
Okay.
our counter offer.
present,
they come
progressive.
back.
Yep, we'll keep
Correct.
working.
So if we can review,
I've got some
The-
questions before we review, if that's okay.
okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I know you covered it in your presentation, Matt, but could you explain what the administrative fee will be used for? And how it will be, how it is in the price for the
Sure.
community?
so very simply put, it's to pay for 2 household hazardous waste events per year and for oversight of the
I mean, the
contract.
administrative fee that's being charged.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, so the administrative fee will be 8% of the cost. If you, what's that, go ahead?
Total revenue.
Yeah, the total revenue that they bring in
Yep.
from the customers. Are you asking what the city will use the
Yeah.
administrative fee for? We will use it to pay for 2 household hazardous waste events per year, and also for contract oversight, because there's realities of staff time dealing with a large contract like this.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that the citizens understand that.
And Matt,
Not-
could you clarify a second part of the question, which is, I think a lot of residents are not understanding that the 8% is within the 3213. That's the total amount they're gonna be billed. No other fees, no other amounts. Is that what you're asking, Councilman?
That's exactly what I wanted to get out there. And just to address the, part of the issues that we have with service providers that deliver products, that pick up products, whatever it might be, they charge surcharges. They throw at us, as business owners, they throw at us this surcharge, and then somehow it doesn't get taken back away. Sometimes it does. I'm not gonna say it never does, but, so in this contract, can they come back at us with surcharges?
No.
Okay.
The only price adjustment they can do is based on that paragraph we discussed earlier.
And
on
if
the
we,
CPI.
and if we choose to have the word may instead of shall, that could solve that.
Yeah, well, see if they agree to that.
And there was something in Joel's presentation or your thing, it dealt with ownership of hazardous material. What does that deal with? Why would the city ever take ownership of hazardous material, or what does that stipulation mean?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Struhl, that was another item that they brought up that got whittled down a bit, and this is what they were acceptable to in the end.
But why would why would that have to be in there? Why would the city ever take ownership of hazardous material?
I had the same question.
Okay.
So, but this is what they wanted to place in the agreement. So you're on number 5, page 2. And ownership to solid waste and recyclable materials shall pass to contractor. That's the one you're talking about. It's talking about recyclable materials.
Okay.
When loaded into contractor's collection vehicle or otherwise received. At one point, I think they wanted us to basically own it, but I added language in there, no time would it pass to the city. So that's the kind of hazardous waste that we're talking about. Radioactive waste, medical waste, because they didn't really want the responsibility of handling those kind of wastes.
They did not want?
Not that kind of waste, because in the industry, they don't really pick that
They're
up.
not
Hazardous.
Their company doesn't deal with hazardous waste. It deals with solid waste. So that's why we hold household hazardous waste materials, because it has to be.
Yeah.
So.
And that is part of the issue with that they have their camera when the things get dumped in there, and they can tell if there's a battery dumped in or paint cans or whatever, right?
Yeah, to my understanding, they watch what gets dumped in the trucks.
Heather, they legally can't take it, right? Our household hazards. I'm looking at our expert over there on house. Is that correct? So so we were trying to work this language really as you are right now. Joel, I thought this language protected us and did enough.
Well, it does now.
Okay.
It says it does not pass to us.
It protects both the city and the
Right.
contractor in the last sentence.
That's
Yeah.
how I read it.
No, I understand. I'm just,
Okay.
it's something that the citizens were gonna be
Just
asking
making sure.
questions
Okay.
for, and
Good.
they're already asking questions. I just wanna
Good.
have that discussion so that it's out there, so when people watch the video or do come and sit or whatever, they'll be able to listen to explanations. The surcharges. Yeah, I had the questions about the shell and the may. That's, as Councilmember Barker knows, that the words mean something. And, Councilmember Rizzi asked most of the questions I had too, so appreciate that, thank you.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
Is that all?
No, that's fine,
Is that all your questions?
yeah.
So I wanted to review about Chip's suggestion about having the town meeting type thing. Is that
Yes.
something that we will go ahead with, or what?
If you'd like it to be, we certainly can help that happen in the next 3 weeks. It looks like we're going to be working on negotiation anyway, and we'll be bringing forward maybe we tie in our next discussion on this with the ordinance and this updated contract. I think we can do that. I think we're real close on the ordinance. And we have an educational, informative meeting with our community and have an opportunity to ask questions. We'll have Republic there as a resource. And is that something we could have like a similar presentation to get the dialogue started? Is that what you're thinking? And then have Anna and Matt and I and be available to answer questions?
Because my next question is, the next time we're gonna talk about this is the middle of November, so exactly 1 month from now.
It's actually the first set of meetings in November.
So
where
in 2 more weeks, we'll be talking about this again.
Correct.
So, Chip, how does that work with your?
I'll let them know.
Can I ask a question about that? Because maybe I don't totally understand the issue. I mean, I understand the issue about manure, because that's a big issue, and then the sewer district is pulling it in, or, you know, allows people to bring it in there and dump it themselves. But I don't quite understand it. Does that mean that they would have a separate receptacle to place it in, so that the Republic would know that all that's in there is manure? Or how would they differentiate so that they would know that they would have to charge extra for the manure, as opposed to, I guess maybe I don't understand, or that's something to negotiate.
I didn't get the full aspects of how they're doing it, but they said it would be a 96 gallon, I think it is what is container.
Yeah, which is what we
Standard size.
That would be handling the manure, and that one would be
Like
the
a different color or
$16.
something. I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking.
I have no idea.
It's a great question, and we definitely can find the answer to that.
Just like the recycle ones, sometimes they have the same color, but the top is a different color or
I
something,
understand.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand.
Okay,
But we'll clarify. We'll
Just
Put
one,
gas
one,
on it.
so the
Your Honor.
question is about having a meeting. And what timeline do you think that would have to happen?
I would definitely like to have a meeting before we ended up, you know, with the final agreement and, you know, accepting it. And basically, in a sense, my idea is, again, to try to just to inform the public, so it's an opportunity for them to come and sit in an informal activity. Like I said, so many people are, I'm gonna say, this set up here, so I don't want it here. It'd be over more like in the multi-generation center or something like that, where it's done in informal aspects, where they can ask the questions, and whether we have a, you know, a presentation up front, how it's going to go, and then afterwards, questions, you know, to answer, whatever. But I think that gives the opportunity for the public to
So our
ask the questions.
next discussion will be in 2 weeks, so you're thinking in maybe 3 weeks? Or after even the next meeting, maybe 5 weeks?
well,
I'll leave it up to the
Don't,
staff.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, on November 4th, is that our 3rd is the work session, and 4th
Right.
is our Tuesday night. We're
Actually-
scheduled to have an open,
Well, it's not, there's,
Actually, it's the
the
4th.
agenda isn't posted yet for that meeting. We were just given
I'm
that as an
asking.
option of, yeah. So we anticipated in the presentation that it would be November 18th, but then we said we could bring it back.
The 4th is a
earlier, right?
Monday, the 4th is a work session, and the 5th is a Tuesday.
okay, whatever it was. But that was the day we were gonna talk about the ordinance. Or-
Right. So so November 4th, we anticipate bringing this contract back for your consideration. But it sounds like
Not
that's,
gonna happen.
so maybe what needs
Unless
to
we can
happen
get
timing-wise, so let's slow down.
Yeah.
There's no rush. Been in my world 20 years of subscription base. We could stay at, so I'm not in any, we're not pushing this. It needs to go, that's what I'm hearing. So November 18th or whatever, could be the night that we do the work session on update of this, and it could be a work session for the ordinance. I think we got some more work on that. We'll start working with the Republic on timing. I think this will push us back to March, to maybe April. But that gives us enough time, Vice Mayor, to find a time in November to properly plan for, and not rush that part either.
Okay, does anyone else have anything else?
I just have one item, just so that the public knows that for something like this, because we believe more than 4 of you will come to the open house and want to listen to the input, we'll need to post it so that
Yes,
they know.
yes.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Bryant said that very well too, though. It's just timing. This is a big deal to the community. They want to feel that they're heard, and we need to make sure that their questions are answered and make sure that it's the right time. So thank you for that.
And I've gotten a lot of email. I've gotten over 100 emails that, for this period of time. And overall, I'm going to say it was, 51% after hearing came back and said, okay. But, you know, even some of them that were repeats from the same person that I came back, and I still counted them as a completed. But, you know, it's the misinformation that's out there is what we need to make sure that we're addressing so that they fully understand it. And of course, I think this is an opportunity for us to open up the doors and say, come on in and talk to us. And hopefully we'll have people come.
Yeah.
You're a good vice mayor, Chip.
Sometimes.
Okay, before I adjourn the meeting, Joel, will you make yourself available to answer the question about why we could not talk with the gentleman before you scoot out that door?
I'll be here all
I'm-
night if you'd like.
Okay, so with that, we'll be adjourned until tomorrow.
You gotta stop making me laugh. You do stuff and I'm laughing and people don't know why I'm laughing.